Hello, hello, construction professionals. Welcome to the podcast where we flip the script on what it means to live, breathe, and lead construction today. In this podcast series, we unpack how great construction can really be when you lead with humanity, put people first, and drop the bullshit of the way it's always been done. Our world has changed, our conversations have changed, and it's time construction catches up. This episode today is brought to you by D&B Accounting Services. Take a seat at our table. One of the first things you see on their website, and that is instrumental because that's exactly how the relationship starts. You see, John and Danny and the rest of the team at D&B truly believe that relationships are the cornerstone of business in everything we do. What makes D&B so special is before they even propose anything, they sit, they listen, they seek to understand how they can be of service to you. They provide the information, the expertise, and the knowledge that you need to flourish so that your businesses will be the best businesses humanly possible. D&B really changed the game on accounting. It is more than transactional. Always has been, always will be. These guys have been great resources, phenomenal friends, and they really care about the success of human beings, of the businesses that we run. Connect with John, Danny, or anybody else at the D&B team. www.dbllp.ca. All the information will be posted in the show notes. Email them at info@dbllp.ca. Take a seat at their table. You will not be disappointed. Hello, professionals. Welcome to another episode. People first, then construction. I'm your host, Jonathan Sinelli, of this show, this content, and this movement. We are up to big things and appreciate you being here. As you know, having people on our show is special, and those that join me in these conversations are truly meaningful. They can really make a difference, and they're providing us with tangible takeaways, different perspectives, and they flip the script in the way things have always been thought about and done. And that's why today I'm excited to share space with John Battaglia, D&B Accounting Services. I've had the pleasure of knowing John and his partner Danny for several years. I'm going to say actually more than that. It's got to be a couple of decades now. And why John is here today is I reached out to him and I said to him, John, listen, there's something magical about the work that we do, the partnership. It's never transactional. It's always so much more. It always, and I use that word purposefully, always begins with a relationship. And for John, that's a no-brainer. You see, for him, relationships are the cornerstone of everything him and Danny do. It's everything they believe in. It's why they got into the business. So John is here today to really flip the script and illuminate for us how things are different when you view professional services such as accounting through a different lens, rather than the traditional metric of making it so heavy and a department that is historically not thought about as far as generating revenue. It is one of the most important puzzle pieces and creates the foundation of everything we do. It provides the insight, the knowledge, and the expertise on where we want to leverage our skill set, our attention. John shares that with us. John shares how things are different when you provide guidance, when you ask the right questions, when you seek the information from relevant personnel. Asking the right questions to align yourself with the right people. John brings us into the world and ties in construction and accounting and how when you view a project from the same lens, things change. John's knowledge and expertise is invaluable. It provides us with a pathway on how to think differently and do differently. And when we have new information, we can make better decisions. That's why John's here. This one was magical. This one was a pleasure. Thanks for tuning into this one. John, welcome to the show. True honor, pleasure. I'm happy to share space with you. Our relationship is tremendously deep. It goes back so many years. And it's much more than a business transactional relationship. And that's what you're here for today. That's what I want to really get out to our audience about how relationships is the cornerstone of everything we do. And part of our relationship has been that. It's getting to know each other. It's the human to human connection that organically leads to business. Of course, like that's how great conversations start. Hey man, how can I help you? How can I be of service to you? And that's where we became into orbit. When you hear the framework of relationships as a cornerstone of business, what does that mean to you?
Overall, it's all about trust. Building relationships is about building trust. That's not something is earned. It takes time. It's developed, over years of working together, and really can't really do business without trust. At least especially in our line of work, you're dealing with people's finances and their livelihood, businesses, and it's instrumental in terms of a very strong relationship, the trust factor. And quite frankly, I find the best relationships I have over the years, you sort of get into such a strong trust relationship that those types of clients that I work with kind of just let me do my thing. They're really sort of, hey John, I know what you got to do your thing. We'll talk when it's time. Versus some clients that, maybe are newer in our relationship, or maybe we just don't quite have, a super strong relationship. Those types of clients tend to sort of be all over me in a sense. What's going on here? What's going on there? Are you sure we're doing this? Did you make sure you claim this? Did you make sure you factor this in? Listen, that's all fair game, right? You're paying for a service. We're dealing with your finances, and hey, all the questions you need. But I guess my point is, the clients I've been working with for many years, where we have that trusting relationship, they tend to be more hands off with, in terms of, that we're doing. So, in the end, I think ask me the question, what does relationships mean as a cornerstone of business? It's not relationships to me means trust. Yeah, that's really what it is.
This is huge though, right? Like, this is the part of life when there's organic trust that occurs in any relationship. I love the way you've defined it. It's hands off. Hey man, high five. Do your shit. I don't care. Like, John, here's the stuff. Here's my philosophy. Here's my ideologies. Tell me what you need from me and tell me when you're done. Versus, like, look at that exchange of the way you framework is we don't yet have a relationship with the same trust with other people. It hasn't happened organically yet. So it's always a sort of a touch point, because as human beings, trust is a real hard thing to sort of solidify. And once you do, it's all in. It's like every other relationship. It's like in a marriage. Once there's trust established, it's blind trust. Like, do your thing, man. Do your thing and tell me what you need. So this is super cool, right? This is sort of your orbit. And then you go after your professional career, and then, you and Danny decide, let's do our own thing. And D&B, how does D&B even come into orbit? How's it start? Like, what's the story behind that? What's the short story of that one?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know how exciting the story is, truthfully, but, I started my career as many CPAs do, and for accounting firm, going back like almost 12 years, long, 15 years, 15, 16 years ago. And, while working there, developed a lot of relationships with a lot of people, particularly, developed a strong relationship with my now business partner, the D of D&D. And, we're probably at sort of the management level in our careers. Big firm. My partner, Danny, sort of jumped ship and said, you know what, John, I think I want to take my try at actually just want to work for a smaller firm. So I'm out of here. Best of luck, set to see him go. But, and then a few months in, he kind of called me and said, hey, listen, you know what? This small firm here, there's a good opportunity to partner here and maybe take over the firm. The gentleman running the firm's getting a bit older and maybe retire in the next few years. I sort of, took that and at first dismissed it.
Sure.
Listen, both of us were doing quite well at the firm, and I wouldn't call it unhappy there. It just he planted the seed, in my mind, and really stopped thinking about, told me, so we just kind of had conversations. How's it going there? This and, the big thing for me was the writing was on the wall a little bit at the big firm, and nothing against.
Sure.
I worked very hard there. Compensation was okay, I think.
Mhm.
Relative to the input of work, maybe not, but
Sure.
nonetheless, I learned a lot there. I learned a really good sort of bone in terms of, being a good CPA. But with that said, the writing was on the wall in the sense that, look, partners at the firm were all sort of, was maybe in my late 20s. All the partners were only in like their 40s, early to mid 40s. So they don't just make partners there at the time. It was like, you kind of had to wait for one of the partners to retire. So I'm looking at it going, geez, you guys aren't retiring for quite some time, given most of their ages.
Sure.
So I said, at this point, I have to make a decision as to keep building my career here. I have no doubt that I was on partnership track there. And, many partners told me that left. But again, I was 28 at the time. I said, now's the time to make a decision because, building a practice on your own is much more difficult to do when you're sort of in your, let's call it late 30s, early 40s.
Sure.
It's hard to just start building relationships that later on in your career. So, you know what? I made the decision and I sort of joined Danny actually at the smaller firm and I left the big firm. The funny part of the story, and I suppose now we can laugh about this, is when we got to the smaller firm, or when I got there at least, it wasn't quite as what Danny had sort of led me on to believe.
Okay.
And that, again, nothing against the smaller firm. It just, the individual running the firm had no intentions of hiring. And, look, he had his way of doing things and he built a successful practice. Who am I to tell him what to do otherwise?
Right.
Just the personalities didn't mesh very well. And, about a month and a half into it, Danny signs. I just left. I just got married, new mortgage, brand new house. For lack of a better term, shit my pants on. Jeez.
Yeah.
What am I doing here? Did I make a huge mistake? And, look, at that point, I think Danny kind of came clean with me, for lack of a better term, and said, look, man, I kind of want to just get you out of there because we'll start our own thing.
Just like that. Oh, man, that's cool.
I'm sitting there going, dude, again, I just got married, was making pretty decent money in the place. Just sitting there going, oh my God, but at the same time, it's like, well, look, it's not too much pride. I ain't going back to the big place with
Sure.
tail between my legs. Not 2 months after I left. So I said, all right, let's do it. Quite frankly, we maybe had $40,000 of billings just through sort of some clients. Mostly Danny had obtained sort of moonlighting, let's call it.
Sure.
Obviously not enough to support two young families.
Right.
But, we had a space, signed a lease, put a bunch of money into software and hardware, and it was just the two of us, and let's go.
Okay, so at that point, like, what is it that says, what is it that's keeping you guys going? Why are we doing this at this point in time? Had you identified that yet?
Well, you know what? Look, I mean, the accounting firm, the small firm that we worked for
a short period of time, right.
At the end of the day, as much as I sort of poke fun at it, this place was instrumental at allowing us to build up this initially.
How so? Yeah.
You know what? He needed us too.
Okay.
And I think he realized, hey, what? These two guys really want to do their own thing, and it's probably not going to work. So we kind of worked a monthly contract, sort of as a subcontract to a bunch of his client work for him.
Okay.
And, at the time, it was $10,000.
Sure.
That was enough bills, keep the lights on. Not enough for any staff for us or anything like that. It let us get going without having to worry about putting food on the table. And, we did that for maybe 6 to 8 months. During that period, like I said, got our office, got all of our registrations with CPA done, and insurance, just, infrastructure sort of built. But, fortunately during that time, we were lucky to find another retiring practice, small little sole practitioner firm. He was retired. we were able to acquire his practice. Once we were able to do that, it sort of allowed us to wean off of this monthly contract we had with this small firm. The rest is history.
Yeah, but see, this is super cool. Like, you didn't know what you didn't know, right? There's lots of aspiring professionals out there who say, I'd like to, land a big firm and stay there and go partnership. And cool, you could have done that. You didn't know what you didn't know. Danny takes his leap of faith, on a friendship and a trust on him, which is cool. We're talking about trust, right? As far as the cornerstone of relationships. And it's that blind faith in him to say, I hear you, I see you, I'm in. You get there, and again, it's like, what the hell did we just do? The
trust would have been misplaced, I think.
Yeah,
at that point.
Yeah, and the uncertainty kicks in, and then what happens from there is there's bigger things at play here that you didn't know, Danny didn't know. Life sort of happens, and it's like, okay, well, now we've got this working relationship with this gentleman, and by the way, that sort of kickstarted 6-7 months, and then something else comes into orbit, right? So all of this is happening, and then what is it for you, that you do differently that really leverages your relationships, your skill set? What do you do differently? What's the message out to the world on how you show up differently, why you do why D&B does what it do, and how you're different than somebody else?
Find that's a difficult question. And for me, it's a difficult question because, when someone says, what do you do different? Well, I'm not exactly sure what everybody else does. Right?
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And that's the truth. Look, I know what big firms do. I know how they operate, but it's not necessarily a fair comparison. What I can tell you now, 10 years in practice as a firm, is that, think as a quote unquote smaller firm with, 2 partners, 10 staff, a lot of the work that we do is of a caliber that is still big firm quality, I suppose. And that's not to sort of toot our own horn. It's just, we came from that culture. We'll credit the big firm.
Yeah.
So we don't really know any other way. So, in terms of how is it different than others? Well, we've acquired a lot of clients from other small firms over the years. And sometimes the work that we see previously from the previous firms, and it's sometimes shocking. And look, we're a business trying to make a buck just like the other business.
Sure. Yeah.
But, because we know no other way, we don't know any other way, we can't compromise on certain things, cutting corners, because we don't know how to do that. And even if that means less return for us, in the grand scheme, it's, not worth sacrificing that quality for, minimal gains from a perspective. And, the interesting part about that is a lot of this high quality extra work that we do, unfortunately, sometimes, or a lot of times, the client doesn't even realize it or doesn't even see it, and so it's kind of like, you don't necessarily get pat on the back from your clients or gratification, but, in the end, I think we see that shine through with our reputation.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is through client referrals, through submitting our financial statements to, let's say, lenders. D&B is not a significant recognizable brand. The first to acknowledge.
Not yet. We're not there yet.
We could talk about, afterwards, but I think what we do have is trust with a lot of the big banks, in a sense that, hey, okay, you know what, these are D&B audited statements. They're a small firm with these guys. They know what they're not. They're not cutting corners.
They know their shit. We're not. Look, I love what you said, right? You're saying, hey, are we getting the instant gratification, the validation, say, high five team, here's your bump pat, you're doing great. No, what you're doing instead is actually you're fostering that trust and that relationship to say,
it's thankless work.
It's thankless work, right? To be honest. Well, I mean, the reality is that's part of the industry that you're in. Sometimes it's thankless. You're doing a lot of behind the scenes things for that one. It's almost like that, and I'm not even a golf player, but it's almost like that golf shot, right? You do a lot of work behind the scenes. It's sort of thankless. It's that one, beautiful shot, that one thing that really blossoms into a wonderful relationship. And like you said, you get, it's the the lifelong relationships. It's the referrals. It's these guys know their stuff, right? That's really cool, right?
Again, I'm not complaining. Look, we're business, we've done, thankfully pretty well, and I'm happy about that. So I'm not complaining about it being this job, but you're a construction podcast, and going through a construction project at my house, and they finish their work. A trade comes in, finishes the place, the bricks up. Every time someone's done, I look and go, "Wow, that's awesome."
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks. I was like, this looks amazing, right? Just the nature of what the deliverable is in my business is generally pushing paper. So I kind of get it in a sense why people aren't necessarily so excited about what I'm able to deliver to them, because it's a nice construction project and tangible, but it's in a sense. So, but just to contrast it with being in construction and building things, you guys are building something physically that has sort of a beauty to it, right?
Mhm.
Whereas our work is, a lot of people look at it as sort of a necessary evil, which I get it, right? No one likes to pay tax. No one likes to be compliant, all these regulations and rules that we have these days. Look, at the same time, when we do a good job, you can tell when a client's happy.
Yeah.
For the most
Well, and these are the things I love you talk about, that the construction is tangible. I can touch and feel it, right? The work you're doing is, listen, part of the rules of engagement. We know that if we're going to operate businesses, these are the rules of engagement. So this is the lifeblood. The work that D&B is doing is actually the lifeblood, the stuff that flows through the veins so that we can create these tangible outcomes. We can touch and feel the bones of the body to say, this is the fruits of our labor. And hey, thanks, by the way, team in the background is making this happen. Because without the work you do, shit doesn't get done. Businesses, we don't have businesses, right? And it comes back to, again, you're leading, it's never transactional. It's never like, okay, here's the widget. You got this piece of paper. It's worth X dollars. Pay and move on. It's not like that. It's so much more. It's always about that relationship. It has been. And so that's why we're here today, because you truly put people first. You actually think. And I want to sort of lean into that. When you hear that framework of putting people first to you, what comes to mind?
Well, it's kind of like you said. I mean, look, at the end of the day, one of the fortunate parts about running an accounting practice from a business perspective is, look, a lot of our revenue is recurring.
Right.
Generally speaking, it's the old thing, the taxes, right? I mean, it's, for the most part, you get work done every year, right? And so, from a selfish business perspective, we're forced to put people first, because I know, keep you happy, you're coming back every single year. Right? So with that said, however, it benefits clients too, because, look, we're not there to try and, gouge that extra $1,000, $100 or $10,000 out of you. Right? We know if we do our job right, fair, put your needs, ease and other things, client of mine for 30 years.
Yeah.
Whereas, look, some other professional industries, I should say. I mean, this is not a knock at the lawyers. They're also another quote unquote necessary evil at times, and they do good work and we need them as well. But a mentality from a law firm, for example, they're not so recurring necessary as we are. So, they're trying to sort of get optimal, maximum dollar value return from you, because, hey, they may never see it again.
Mm-hmm.
And again, going back to the construction team and sort of back to the small little construction project I had at my house, I sort of, with certain trades that I work with, I was a little disappointed with, the way it was treated, in the sense of the timing of my work getting done, and sort of being done to believe it would be done at certain times and not showing up, or gouging me. And think I sort of came to realize with these trades, I'm not a big general contractor. I'm a guy running a small project at my house. And so, in a way, I feel that these guys know I'm not feeding them work every day. Right? I'm not. So if they disappoint me, not a big, John's not going to build it. What's he doing? He's an accountant, right? So I guess, circling back to your question, at the end of the day, the way our industry and our business is structured, it's official for us to put people first, even if we didn't want to put people first, because that ensures the long-term health of our business. Yeah. I try and vouch someone for a few bucks because we ran into some problems. Maybe it's warranted, but again, we sort of look to long-term, and because of the nature of our tax system here and financial reporting system and many other countries, things are generally done on an annual basis.
Yeah.
As long as you're in business and as long as we do good work for you, I won't give you an advice.
That's it. You can, and I love how you tie in the construction aspect of it, because listen, folks, it gets down to honor your word, keep your commitment. If you're going to do something, do it. Create the experience for the person in front of you. And that's what you're talking about. You're saying, look, we know that if we create the right experience, Jonathan, you'll be a client for life. Hell yeah. I have no reason to go anywhere else. Why would I go somewhere else? The whole objective of being in business is to profit. That's what we're in business for. So I'm going to come to you, pay for the services. I'm going to get good work. And I know what the expectations are. And, here's what you need to know. And by the way, here's some other information, knowledge should you wish to know, versus the situation you just talk about where we tie in construction, where it's like, I don't know when this guy's showing up, what the hell he's doing. Like, what the hell, man? I was led on in a different direction. And
that's not to say that I've also had a great experience.
Of course you have.
So when you kind of get that contrast of someone who doesn't talk to you, doesn't show up for 3 weeks, versus the guy answering your calls, the communication part is really key. And like, even for us, look, we fall behind too.
Of course.
Tax season, try not to overpromise, and we try to manage it, but
shit happens.
Sometimes shit happens. But the major difference is communicating when shit. Hey, Jonathan, listen, man, you know what? I know we said this week. My bad. Was cold or
yeah.
And look, we fell a bit behind, man. I promise you this. And you know what? For the most part, people understand.
Of course.
It's sort of the dodging and the sort of lack of communication where, okay, people, you can buy yourself a lot of.
Of course you can. You're talking about trust and vulnerability, right? You just defined it. You're amplifying that trust by showing up with vulnerability. Jonathan, this happened. More times than not, humans are going to get it, right? Or if not, they're going to say, okay, so fine. John, put this aside right now. This is mission critical. Can we do this? Okay, now you co-create a new reality. So we're working through that. And this is part of the business you do. So when you do this, what do you do? How do you know? Is there a process you go through to sort of touch and feel if it's the right fit, the right relationship for DMB, the right relationship for the client? What do you do?
Oh, in terms of she's working.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Look, I think like any business, go back 10 years now, you sort of take what you can when you're building a business.
Sure.
And maybe, at the time, maybe some of the people that we worked with weren't the best fit. Nowadays, when you're a little more established and you're worried about putting food on the table, let's say, allows you to sort of take a step back, assess that a little more.
Sure.
Because, at the end of the day, it's not a right fit. It's not just about us. It's about potential client too.
Of course.
If it's not a right fit for us, it's not going to be an experience for you as well, right? Our professional standards for a lot of the engagements that we sort of decide whether or not to take on, our professional standards actually require us to go through a series of questions, analysis, let's call it, to determine whether or not this is an engagement that we should accept.
Okay.
Engagement accept procedures actually is what they're generally referred to as. So, they're in place to professional practice, the CPA brand in general.
Sure.
But, look, I think at the end of the day, it is sometimes difficult to determine whether or not, you're going to be a good someone and vice versa until you actually sort of start working. Right.
Okay.
But, look, these days, a lot of the things we kind of look for are, look, what's your attitude towards financial reporting? What's your history with filing your taxes? place importance on having good, up to date financial statements. You have an in-house accounting department for our larger clients, of course. So, that'll sort of lead us into a direction to say, look, you know what? You might need a little more help with bookkeeping. You might have a firm that is more of a day-to-day part-time bookkeeper / CFO. Whereas, we have an accounting department. We need our financial quality side, audited statements. You know what? That's great. That's kind of up our alley, let's say.
So you're not just saying yes right away. You're asking really good questions to understand who you're dealing with.
And look, again, it's not to sound pompous or anything, because look, we got clients $100,000 a year in sales, all the way up to $300 million.
Yeah.
So we take clients from all avenues. But yes, I think being some more established now, it's sort of, afforded us the opportunity to be a little more selective in terms of, the type of work we want to be involved with. Because again, look, the last thing that we want, look, oftentimes we'll get referrals from family, friends, even other clients.
Sure.
Hey, I got my brother-in-law. He's a mess. Can you help him out? Look, oftentimes we will charge for the work, of course, but those are the situations sometimes where we almost feel compelled to help. But then it's difficult because you're not quite as motivated to do the work that you kind of don't want to do, right? And so in the end, if we're not motivated, we'll still do a sufficient job. We're not going to,
of course, you are,
put something out there that has our name on it that's not good. Just it's human nature. If you're not into the work, if it's a quote unquote to do the work, it's done. It's it'll shine through, I think, the client's experience.
Well, this is it, right? This is so. You're asking these really interesting questions to understand if they're a fit, and sometimes you'll take on the work out of respect for others, and also, hey, you never know the relationship that might flourish out of that. And it sounds like there's also times where you might say, hey, thanks, and no thanks. Like, hey, we're gonna do this, and then you revisit that, and you have a tough conversation or a challenging conversation to say, Jonathan, we might not be the right fit for you. It seems like you're gonna need a bookkeeper, and you're gonna need this, and then we can augment that experience. You're painting the whole picture for people. So you're not hiding anything. You're saying, look, guys, we're here for you, and I don't know that this is the right fit. Does that sound right?
No, for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, nobody wants to be in a relationship where one party doesn't want to be sort of involved or not motivated to work. And that's exactly it. If you're upfront about everything, best you can be, then you can hold your head high, no matter what happens. Transparency is the business that we're in. Right? Issue with financial statements. The key is to be transparent.
Yeah, of course.
The operations of the business. So it's embedded in our training as CPAs, I suppose, to be transparent. And, sometimes it's not easy to tell somebody that.
Of course.
You don't want to hear it. You almost want to avoid those conversations when you can at times, but it's to your detriment if you do, because, if you're upfront about something or transparent about whether or not something's going to work, you're already starting off, behind.
Yeah.
And sort of, on a lie, essentially. And, look, we've had times in the past where we've, had to sort of not accept certain agents, kind of walk away from things.
How did you know that? Like, what if you can, without you're getting too much detail, but how do you get that sense to say this is not it?
Well, you know what? The interesting part is at the end, we have clients.
Sure.
We serve them. The way I view things these days is yes, you are paying us to do work for you. However, the experience that we're creating is that financial reporting, tax work, but this is a two-way street.
Yeah.
It's we can't do our work unless you are cooperative with us, feed us the information we need, and so, when you have clients that are generally placing importance on getting things done from our end, giving us the information we need, and that's not because necessarily that they're withholding it, it's just, yeah, I'll get to it. And then all of a sudden, hey guys, the deadline's in 2 days. Where's my interest in this? Well, we've been reaching out to you for the past. You haven't really been very responsive. You know, we will never, we will never compromise our quality to get something out before.
I love that.
I would rather be late, and if we lose a client that way, we're not going to sacrifice our reputation because somebody else was behind. And so,
and I want to pull the handbrake there because that's beautiful, because so many times we hear the opposite. We're like, holy shit, it's crunch time, all hands on deck, overload the resources.
And listen, we'll do that.
Of course you will. But you've also identified
certain things.
We're not going to compromise the integrity of our work or our relationship, right? So now you're talking about a two-way street. Like, what do you do to ensure that the expectations are vividly met? So in this situation, hey, Jim, we're just using Jim as an example. Jim, here's the expectations, man.
Well, and look, we do our best to keep that verbally up front. And we have these conversations in advance. We also actually give out engagement letters for people to sign.
Well, there you go. It's vividly clear, man.
Engagement letters like a contract. I mean, but it's not really about the price, the engagement letter. It's actually the expectations of us and the expectations for you.
Beautiful, right? Here's what you would expect of
DMB.
DMB.
Read those things? I would say probably not, to be honest. So, as a backup, we generally try and communicate these things verbally. But the reality is, like I said, I always tell clients, hey, get us your stuff or feed us what we need. Put the pressure on us. Once you, to us, it's our problem now.
I love that.
If we're out chasing you around all the time, number one, it's a good experience for everybody. Number two, from a selfish business perspective, I can't have starting, stopping, chasing around. Forget what you did 2 weeks ago. It becomes extremely inefficient, and quite frankly, the quality starts to suffer. Whereas, hey, you get things done in one city necessarily, but in a determined timeline, and everybody's working towards getting done, it's better for everyone.
Holy shit, man, you're present. Like, let's stay present on this task. Let's finish it.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Like, you want the best quality of work, then once I have the information and I'm on a track to be pulled on and off, we all know the time constraints of, everybody says, it takes 5 minutes. There's no such thing as a 5-minute job. It takes 20 minutes just to shift your perspective and get your brain geared up somewhere else. So this is beautiful, right? Here's the expectations. It's vividly laid out and mapped out if you choose to read it. And if not, well, hey, man, we're still in your corner. We're still going to support you. We're going to recommunicate those so that we're vividly clear. And I love the framework of, put the pressure on us, man. You want to see us perform? We'll perform. Give us the shit. High five, rock and roll. So,
look, a framer can't work without the lumber.
Yeah.
A bricklayer can't work without bricks. So it's sort of the equivalent to having your trades show up on site with no material. They can't. And so it's a very, at least in my opinion, it's a pretty relevant comparison.
Beautiful. And like, there's what folks don't understand sometimes. It's like, hey, man,
this is not necessarily tangible.
It's tangible, not tangible. Give me the damn shit I need to produce the work you need. Without the lumber, you ain't getting a house. Without the data, you ain't getting a report.
Look, it sounds simple and pretty, straightforward, relatively speaking, but if there's any challenges we face, a lot of times it's not great experience, let's call it. It's generally because of that. And look, at the end of the day, we get it, right? Business owners are busy and they want to run their business. I get it. When you get to the point of, that's a lot of times where we start providing advice to say, hey, look, Jonathan, your company's growing. You may not think you have the budget for, let's say, a full-time keeper or controller, but I think you're at the stage where you're trying to do everything yourself and it's not right. Your time would be better served doing your thing, running your business, not getting into the weeds. And, I find that my best clients, and when I say best, strictly from financial success with running their businesses, those men and women figured it out. And they realize, hey, I got to get people around me these tasks because I'm not an accountant. Why am I dealing with the finances? It's good to be involved and understand what's going on, certainly, but we're doing an audit engagement, for example, the owner should not be involved so hands-on with feeding us supporting documentation. If you're at that stage, it's a problem if you're sort of trying to do it all yourself, And so that's where we would kind of get someone in there. You need someone, right? We're not, our job, and that's where the challenge often lies, where there's sometimes a gray area of what is it that we do and what is it that you need to do for accounting, say internally. We're not there signing checks. We're not running your business, right? We're a partner with you, sir. So that's where these things have to be defined. Oftentimes, that's where the best experience comes into play, is where business owner or owners realize, hey, my time is better served running my business.
I love that.
The administrative side of things, you can only for so long, right? It's a sign of success in terms of, hey, I can't keep up with these bothering me for stuff. I don't have time to get to them. I'm falling behind. Then you know what? Probably means you're in a growth phase. To make an investment, financial reporting, because look, at the end of the day, I find a lot of business owners don't have trouble spending money on marketing, people that make them money necessarily, right? And so they'll look at accounting, professional services in the accounting world as sort of cost center because it doesn't make them money. And I get that, right? We're not necessarily making you money through sales. Your accounting department. However, the alternative of having really bad financial reporting, for lack of a better term, will definitely hinder your business, because you don't know what's going on. You think you're making, we'll go back to construction. If you're making money on jobs and one job's super profitable and one's taking.
Yeah.
If your finances aren't in order, if your books aren't in good shape, you got 20 jobs going on, you're never going to know. And you're sitting there thinking, okay, on average, hey, we did okay, but hey, look how bad you did on this side. You have that information in a timely manner in front. Make decisions. Yeah. This job's a big loser. Why? What did we do wrong here? Oh, we didn't do this correctly, or you'll get the story. If all is just lumped together, you don't know what's going on. I would argue in the end, yeah, we're not, accounting department is not making money, but it potentially make sure you don't lose a bunch of money. So I guess I'm biased in terms of placing importance on financial report, because this is what I do, but believe me when I tell you, I've seen the alternative. And a company is kind of a accounting mess, call it. Good.
There's something that's really magical there. You talk about the holistic approach of when you're dealing with clients where, hey, we can have one job that's going really well, one job that's not going so well. And unless you have visibility on everything, this is where the sort of the D&B experience, this is what you talk about holistically, working with those cool people that really get, okay, at some point in time, I need to peel back and hand off the information to the experts to get the job done. And sometimes it's going to happen, sometimes it doesn't. So this is really cool, right? This is that difference. Again, you're also creating an experience where it could be very transactional. Hey, you give me the widget, I give you a widget back. You're actually educating along the way to say, it might be worthwhile for you to bring somebody in, and here's why.
Well, look, information is only useful when it's timely, right? You can't make a decision on something 8 months later with historical information. It's too late.
Yeah.
You need, information has to be reliable and good quality, but it's almost rendered useless if it's not timely, right? And so, when you take that approach and you translate it to financial reporting, how can you make a financial decision 7 months later?
Yeah.
On whether it's jobs being profitable, whether it's trying to obtain financing from banks, I can't tell you how many times, we've had experiences where, clients think they're eligible to get a $5 million operating line and sit there and go, well, you have significant operating losses this year, and, you're already really highly leveraged. And, well, I had no idea. Well, that's the problem, right? That's the problem in itself. So, like, again, in practice, I'm speaking of, you know, optimal scenarios and getting things done right away, and it's not always easy to do, and we certainly appreciate that. But, and that's why it goes back to the working relationship being a two-way street. And again, we'll give it back to construction. If I don't give a trade proper plans and I don't give my input on how we want something done, how can they execute it? Right?
Yeah.
If there's not conversations had and there's not a plan in place, can't really fault people for doing things in a way that you didn't expect, right? And everything is a two-way street in life. I mean, I don't look at it as, customer vendor, relationship. It's yes, you're paying us to do our work again, but this is a partnership.
It's a
right?
partnership.
We're doing something with a common goal, and why not make it easier for us to do our work, right? And again, same with construction, right? If I can make sure, if I tell you the materials are going to be here, architect has the plans drawn correctly. If you have questions about the plans, hey, no problem. Let's discuss. Measure once, or what is it? Cut once, measure twice, right? It's and I keep using these construction euphemisms here, but it's I'm just trying to tie this all back, and
yeah,
there's very many similarities to getting a house built versus getting a set of books done properly.
Of course,
it's some of the basic general principles are the same.
But you talk about it there, right? Relationships flourish when expectations are vividly clear. Hey man, if I don't give you the right plans and specs and the right materials, how can I expect the house that I'm looking for? If I don't give you the right data at the right time, how can I expect the right results financially? It doesn't work that way. We're talking about partnerships. It's the exact opposite of a transactional interaction. This is what's super beautiful, right? And I think this is what our folks out there need to hear. The audience needs to hear this. Look, whatever presuppositions you're bringing in as far as the financial world and the financial aspects, yes, it's heavy. I say it's heavy too because I don't fully understand it. That's why I hire the experts to say, do your stuff, man. What do you need to get the job done successfully? If I want the house, then here's the data, here's the information, here's my expectations. What's achievable from here?
Yeah.
Right?
No, for sure.
So, there's a lot of construction professionals out there looking to sort of complement their life with professional services. What advice do you have?
Well, look, I mean, I can certainly speak specifically to, partnering up with, the right accounting firm or professional for you. And, I think I would say specifically with construction professionals, construction accounting in itself is actually very specific. It's got its own sort of set of principles and nuances that don't necessarily apply to restaurants and manufacturing companies and things of that nature that are sort of follow a very same template, where my advice would be try and partner up with a firm that understands construction, understands construction accounting. Do you go ask your accountant, do you know what holdbacks are? Do you know what receivable holdbacks are? Substantial completion, do you understand what that means? Do you understand what WIP is, work in progress? There are very plentiful amounts of tax planning and financial reporting nuances that come along with these things that, again, for an accountant that is not so familiar with construction and the industry, you could be sort of hindering yourself from a lot of tax planning opportunities and also correct financial reporting when it comes to construction. And look, for our firm's sort of motto is, hey, look, you know what? I'm not going to take something on that I'm not comfortable with.
Beautiful, yeah.
There's plenty of work out there, and for me to do company in an industry where it's very specific and I don't understand it, I don't want to take that stress on, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, can I learn it? Probably, but the reality is, you have to know when to say, hey, you know what, this is not in our field of expertise, and we're not going to be able to really do much for you here. I'll give you a perfect example, U.S. tax work. We have a lot of clients that have some cross-border situations, and hey, look, I'm always the first to say, look, that's just not something that we really specialize in. Yes, we are aware of it. We understand the rules at a high level, but we're going to need some extra help here, right?
Yeah.
We're going to have to bring someone else on board. Because again, we've learned the hard way trying to do things that we maybe don't really know how to do quite well. And again, in the end, it just doesn't serve anybody well, myself included.
Of course.
And so really, for construction professionals, I think the questions to ask your accountant, or if you're interviewing an accounting firm, is, hey, do you deal with construction? Are you comfortable? Do you know unions? Are you comfortable with WSIB? Again, do you know what accounts receivable holdbacks, accounts payable holdbacks are? Do you understand work in progress, percentage of completion accounting? These are things that, any accounting firm that works with construction clients will know and should know.
Yeah.
Because again, these are items that are quite specific to, the construction industry. So, our practice, just so happens that we do tend to work with quite a bit of, medium to large size construction companies, whether it's home builders or very large subcontractors, painters, framers, concrete and drain companies. And we, over the last 10 years, we've developed a pretty good understanding of construction.
Sure.
Not even just from the accounting side. Look, can I build a house on my own? Certainly not. But do I understand, the ins and outs enough to have a meaningful conversation with somebody in the construction industry? Most definitely.
This is amazing. Like, that's magical. There's so many tangible takeaways there. You really debunk the myth of all accounting is the same. No, principles might be similar, but it's just like, I wouldn't go to a doctor and say, hey doctor, my knee hurts, and he's a heart specialist.
That's right.
Like, find the specialist in your industry. So ask the right questions. It's a mutually interviewing process. Hey, what do you know? What do I know? What can I learn? Mm-hmm. And again, I love what you're saying. Is, again, based on the relationships that you fostered, you ask enough right questions to say, hey, I've also learned about the industry holistically.
Right.
This is super cool.
It also doesn't hurt that I tend to have a general interest in the industry. Right, and that's always key, right?
That adds passion to the work you do. Hey, I actually give a shit.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I always find it interesting in terms of what projects my clients are working. Oh, you're working on the LRT, the Eglinton LRT.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's a good job to have. And which condos are going up right now? Oh, cool. Yeah, right at Yonge and Eglinton there. Right?
Sure.
And so it's interesting to me. With that said, look, not every single industry that we work with is interesting to me, but
sure.
At the end of the day, it's if you do have a general interest in what your clients do, it comes out in your work.
It comes out in your work.
And ultimately, doing the mechanics of the number crunching, quote unquote, it's part of the job, certainly, but it's, understanding business, I think, is really what takes you to the next level as sort of being a good accountant and business
sure.
advisor, right?
Well, you actually care, and you're building a relationship. You might be doing something, and then all of a sudden, like, holy smokes! I remember Jonathan talking about the building they were putting up. You sort of stop with you, hey man, I'm doing this right now. This came up, crossed to my head. It's, you care, you're thinking about it. It's the relationship you're developing, and organically the trust. Now you call and say, Jonathan, I was thinking about this. Does this make sense? Yeah. Well, now I already know you're thinking about it. You're passionate about it. The trust is there. Like, I can trust everything John is doing, because he's not simply looking at a number, and then it can become really easy to sort of push a number back and forth. We know that. When you actually care about the people, the work that's getting done, and the industry you're in, holistically, organically, your work shows up. You give a damn about the people. You give a damn about the stuff that you're doing. This is super cool, man.
Yeah, that's the reason to wake up in the morning, right? I mean, again, it's at the end of the day, it's everybody goes to work and provides for their family. But if you're able to wake up every day and have motivation to go in, I mean, it's that's one of the keys, I think, to maintaining happiness. Look, I don't wake up every morning and I'm not always super excited
sure.
to start my day, and you talk to me from January to April, it's some days are better than others, let's call it, but I think generally speaking, the last 10 years for us have been more positives than negatives.
So take us into that though, when there is rough days, because we all go through rough days, and this is the part that I love talking about. This is the human to human connection. There's rough days, especially when we're talking finances, because there's emotional attachment to it. Like, what is it that keeps you going when it gets rough?
Well, I think lots of things. I mean, number one, responsibility to my family, and making sure that the business stays healthy. And if I'm having a bad day, hey, I got a family at home that is depending on me. So that's probably first and foremost. Because if that doesn't motivate you, I don't know what will.
Right.
I think also responsibility to my employees, right? I mean, they're depending on us to keep the business viable, making sure that we keep our clients happy so that they can support their families, right? And it's going back to hiring our first few employees. I'm almost kind of was sitting there going, geez, I hope we can support these people.
Wow.
It's scary, right? And it was a bit of a burden for me initially mentally to sort of say, hey, well, I think we'll be okay. And again, thankfully things have worked out and don't really have those concerns at this point. But it's always in the back of my mind when I make a decision. The staff is in my head as well in terms of their families and their livelihood, right? And hey, look, I think our staff, primarily speaking, are all pretty good, and they're good at what they do. And hey, if push came to shove, I'm sure they can find employment. But I don't really look at it that way, right? I look at it and say, hey, these people are depending on our success as a whole. So, it's half my responsibility to make sure that we keep things going.
It's heartwarming to hear that. You're a wonderful human being for saying that. So thank you for actually giving it down with the people, because it doesn't have to be that way. There are some organizations out there that it's completely transactional. We have numbers that we hear all the time. There's head counts. There's cut slash. Fine. We're not gonna dissect those. Except you talked about something very different. Like, what keeps you going is your responsibility to your family and to the families that are under their D&B roof.
Well, I think I've had that experience, being on the employee side, back in my big firm days, and again, I had positive experience there, but I saw some of the cons of, the machine of corporate life, and look, at the end of the day, when you have 1,000 people working at a place, it's not easy to kind of maintain that sort of family culture. It's almost impossible, really. And so you do get a bit of that, hey, look, in order to save 800 people's jobs, we might have to slash 50 people, right? And in some ways, maybe it's a necessary evil from that perspective. And for us, it's, like I said, we've kind of kept it boutique. And, I think that's just what we enjoy as a firm is, look, we've had, over the last 3 to 4 years, we've had a number of medium to even large size firms approach us and say, hey, let's swallow up D&B and come be a partner here and join the bigger side. And although there might be some pros to that, I think generally speaking, we're in a position where we're comfortable where we're at in terms of our size and how we operate, and from a work-life balance perspective too. I mean, that's it allows me to kind of keep that.
Yeah.
And so that's at the phase of life that I'm in, and where my family is, and the age of my children. I want them to know who their dad is, and I want them to see me, and I want to be involved. And again, everybody's got their busy times, and look, January to April to May even can be difficult, but staying the size that we are, and you always have to stay hungry, and you have to keep things moving, certainly. But again, it's that's kind of the culture we've built in our small shop, and that's what we enjoy, right?
Thank you. This is huge. This is, again, there's so much more to it. Like, you've taken business and you've really injected the human side of things to it. These are wonderful stories. I mean, like, you've got quite the journey, and there's been, it sounds like it's a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster of life. There's been ups and downs on the journey. There's been pivot points. There's been lots of lessons learned. Like, if you sort of reflect back, what has the journey so far, the journey in life so far, in business and life so far, Sort of, what's one of the biggest things you learned that's worth sharing?
Yeah, I think for me personally, knowing your worth, knowing what your time is worth and your value, that's probably something that, and it goes back to, I think, self-esteem, and everybody has insecurities, and especially when you're starting off and you're new, look, you kind of, you try and obtain what you can from a business perspective and clients, and what I've realized is, and oftentimes I've openly said this to my partner a lot, is that he's better at valuing and staying within his lines of, hey, this is what our time is worth,
Mm-hmm.
and hey, nobody's forcing you to work with us, but in order to do what I have to do for you, it's not all just about money, but I mean, the reality is, if you're confident in terms of what your time is worth and how valuable it is, clients will respect you for that.
That's huge.
Or the right clients will respect you for that. And again, it's not about, you're not trying to rip people off or anything like that, but it's oftentimes, like, you asked before about accepting clients and working with them. You never like a client coming and saying, hey, one of the big questions we'll ask is why are you leaving your previous account, right?
Sure.
It's an important question, because we often don't really lose too many, right? Because of the relationships. Right?
Yeah.
So we'll always say, like, he was too expensive. Okay, well, hey, maybe that is true, but oftentimes it's usually not the case. And so, it just brings me back to the whole, look, we don't necessarily, I don't want to win business because we were the cheapest.
Right.
I don't want to win a client. Again, listen, if somebody was extremely overpriced, which we have seen, hey, so be it, and we'll gladly do the work for a fair market price. But we don't want to be outbidding somebody, and then it's almost like the old construction way where,
yeah,
let's undercharge and we're gonna throw some extras afterwards to try and get the fees up. No, it's look, this is your worth, because in the end, because of the annual nature of our business and the recurring nature of our business, if you sell yourself short, I should say, in year one, and you significantly do that, good luck. You're never gonna, get your value. And again, it's not just about the money. It's just that at the end, if you're not working for somebody and getting your proper value, you're never gonna be quite as motivated, because you don't feel right about it.
You're devaluing yourself. This is huge, folks, right? This is it. Like, there's no shame in saying this. In fact, I'm super proud to hear that that's the whole messaging. And listen out there, folks. Know your worth, and then ask for your worth.
Yes.
Because what?
It is two different things. Know your worth, but then also ask
for your worth, because that's gonna bring into orbit the people you want to surround yourself with.
That's right.
You start to sell yourself short, you're devaluing yourself off the bat. And are you ever going to catch that cycle? No. Now, I mean, you want to slide into there? That's a human decision you have to make. Mm-hmm. When you know your worth and you're holistically solid and grounded, from there to say, this is it, man. A partnership is vividly clear, and this is what the value is to you. It's no different than we all spend our money on doing different things. I'm going to go to a steak restaurant, and I'm going to spend a ton of money. Why? Because it's the experience. Because I know the value. I know the worth of that restaurant. Can I go get a cheaper steak somewhere else? Sure. Know your worth, and then ask for your worth.
Yeah.
That's
you can
going.
only say what your time is worth, right?
Yeah.
You can't tell somebody, at least in my opinion, I can't tell you what your time is worth.
Right.
If you give me an honest opinion of what your time is worth, if that's worth it to me,
yeah,
then I can make that decision, right? I mean, and I'm saying this totally honestly, and maybe that's why for my construction project, maybe I've overpaid in certain areas. But look, if somebody tells me a quote, I will never, come on, shave $1,000 off. That's just not. If that's what your quote is, hey, it's on me to decide.
Do I want that? Yeah.
Is that worth it to me, or should I maybe source it somewhere else and have a night? Hey, look, I always urge people, even in our business, look, like, can you find this work maybe less expensive? Certainly. You can always find things, less expensive elsewhere. It's all about, balancing price. Nobody likes to get ripped off.
Of course.
But, at the same time, cheapest isn't always better. I mean, quite frankly, oftentimes it's not. Doesn't mean most expensive is always better either. But, any price that I put out there, or quote or fee, I will take that to the bank all day long. I will tell everybody that.
Yeah.
And look, the reality is a lot of our clients, because it's such a referral-based business, they all know each other. There's no secrets.
Yeah.
You can go call, anybody, and for the same amount of work, hey, what's John charge you for that?
Yeah.
No problem. Go ahead. There's no hiding anything, right? And ultimately, I think that is probably one of the most important lessons I think I've learned, and I'm still working on that, to be honest with you, over the years. It's taken me a while to kind of not necessarily know my worth, but asking for it.
Ask your worth.
And again, it's I don't want to make it sound hey, D&B's super pricey and crazy. No, it's not about that at all. This is almost even more of a personal thing, right?
Of course.
It's knowing the worth. I think for me wasn't necessarily an issue or a challenge, but more so having the confidence to demand it when it's necessary.
I love that. And you've identified that. I mean, your skill set's already been identified. Provided so many tangible nuggets of gold through the whole conversation. I think
we'll tell our clients that all the time too. Hey, why did you take a bath on this job? Oh, I took it cut to get the job, and no, then don't do the job.
Right.
You're
like this is over, but I got to keep the doors open. At what cost? At 1% margin? At 0% margin? Like, come on, folks.
At a negative margin.
Right? Come on, folks. Right? Know your worth and ask for it.
Right.
You've identified the expertise. Here's what we're good at. Here's also what we're not good at. Here's what you can expect from us. Here's what you not to expect from us. So know your worth and ask for it. This has been magical. Thank you for taking us down this pathway. Truly warmed my heart. Truly, you talk about the connections, the human-to-human connection. You talk about so many wonderful things that the audience out there is going to resonate with for sure. A couple of fun things. I want to sort of end it on a couple of fun things, and maybe not, but some reflection moments. These are personal sort of thoughts, I guess.
Uh-oh.
In the past 12 months, think of a time somebody did something nice that just made you smile. What shows up for you?
Oof, jeez. It's hard to think of, actually. I guess if I bring it back to, let's say a client relationship, I really helped out a particular client through a tough situation with a death in the family, a lot of estate planning work that was required, and trust work that was required, and nothing outside of the norm though in terms of what I would do for all of my clients really, but in the end this particular woman sent me a heartfelt, and it was look, it was nothing crazy or expensive or fancy, but the time that this woman took, wrote me like a 3-page sort of thank you card. I mean, it wasn't even a card because it was literally 3 pages long of just thanking me for doing my job essentially, right? And I still have it in my office, just kind of up on the window. And you know what? It's again, I'd rather have that than someone sending me a nice bottle of wine or a gift card. I mean, appreciate those as well, but I realize how scarce time is, and that's speaking from personal experience. There's days where I feel like I don't even have time to just sit down and have a coffee. So the fact that this individual clearly spent a lot of time and thought writing this thank you letter to me was pretty meaningful for me. So off the top of my head, I mean, that's probably one of the nicest things someone has done for me in the last little while.
Oh my God. So
at least from a business perspective.
I just pause and take a deep breath, because there it is, right? There it is, folks. And on those dark days that you look towards that window and go, this is why I do the shit I do. Like, this keeps me going, man. It's that human bond. It's that you made a difference in somebody's life, period. Like, that's what we're here for. Strip down your title, strip down everything else in life, because nobody gives a shit. Who are you as a human being? So that's it, man. That's super cool. So here's a thought for you then. If you had an opportunity to teach everyone in the world one concept, what would you teach the world?
Oof.
To have huge impact. Like, and we're talking here, you want to have an impact. So it's got to be something that is going to land and be impactful. What shows up for you?
Well, I mean, I don't know how impactful this would be on the world, but, I think, and again, I'll bring it back to my own sort of personal / professional experiences. But, I mean, a couple things maybe come to mind for me. I mean, don't burn bridges. That's something that I think has served me well, and something that I have been good at over the years. And, I'll talk specifically about, look, when I left the big firm 10 years ago, some people leave on terms where they're not so nice and not so favorable, and I made it a point to, and listen, maybe it was selfish on my end to say, hey, things don't work out, I might have to come back to this place.
Sure.
But in the end, look, I left that place not during their busiest time. I made it a point to make sure that I didn't leave anybody hanging. I talked to all the partners I worked for individually when I left. And look, 10 years later, I'm getting offers to come back and be bought out. I'm getting work from them where there are clients that maybe are a little too small in size for them or not the right fit for them. I'm getting work from them. And I have several partners there where, hey, if I ran into something that I've never seen before or I'm not comfortable with, I can pick up the phone and call them.
Beautiful.
Say, hey, can you give me a hand with this? And you know what? There's no bad blood whatsoever. Versus I've had colleagues that have not left on such good terms and they don't have that relationship. So to me, that's probably, I think, good advice for, let's call it the younger professionals coming up. Because, I think the concern, if any, that I have these days is, look, post-COVID world now, especially, not so much in the construction world, but in the sort of professional / office world, it's a standard now for people to work from home for, if not sometimes the majority of the week.
Sure.
I think, although there are lots of benefits from a mental health perspective to work from home, and it certainly makes aspects of life easier, I think we're losing that human connection.
Yeah.
Especially with, not to sound old here, but I think with the younger generation, all they're used to now is, get hired, and instead of going to the office and meeting everybody, you're just going back to your parents' basement to work.
Yeah.
And I think that's dangerous for our future, because we're social beings, and these younger kids coming out of university, yes, they've had a chance to socialize for 20-25 years and developed knowledge on how to socialize, but at a different level, right? I've talked to a few people that have said, look, working from home is nice and all that, but I don't even know half the people in my office, and
yeah,
it's scary for okay, look, someone like our age that have been doing this for many years and are used to having personal relationships. We've kind of learned how to do that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think the kids coming up now, especially fresh out of school, they're losing out on this, and for me personally, it concerns me a bit. I don't think it's for the better of our society personally, and not to get so deep, but it's just.
So it's really stay connected to human beings and don't burn those bridges,
I think so.
right?
And look during COVID, yeah, like we probably didn't see the majority of our clients for a solid, couple of years almost. And look, certain things that sort of came out of that have definitely made our practice more efficient. But then, at the same time, it's like we're sort of just getting back on the horse now to say, hey, like, let's start getting out there and seeing people again.
Yeah.
It's nice to not see people during January to April when we're swamped, definitely, right?
Sure.
It helps get things done more efficiently, but
at what cost impact, right?
At what cost, right?
Yeah.
There's clients that I haven't seen in 3 years.
Sure.
And look, some clients are okay with that, and I can live like that too with certain people, but like I said, right? It's like, I don't know, who wants to stare at a computer screen all day? And
nah, we're human beings.
It's to me, it's imperative that again, I think in this economy, interest rates, cost of everything going through the roof. Hey, let people work from home for a couple days here and there. Save some cost. Totally get that. Totally on board with that. But again, I think it's at what cost, right? People need to interact, not just within your own family and your own four walls. We need to be out there.
It's what helped us evolve over the years. Listen.
Well, that's what separates us from the animals. Right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's what it is, right? So.
This has been cool, John. Thank you. It's been an honor. Yeah. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
How do people get in touch with you?
I think best way these days is if it's just sort of a general inquiry, probably at our general email box at info@dbllp.ca, and generally those emails will go to one of the partners and go from there.
All right, folks, and not to worry if you're driving, if you're capturing that in your ears, all that will be in the show notes, link to the website, link to how to get in touch with DMB. Exceptional human beings. Thanks for being here, John. Thanks for sharing this knowledge with the world. Our audience appreciates it. I appreciate it.
Thanks again.
It's been a pleasure. So thank you. Okay. Well, folks, thanks for hanging out to the end. Listen, that conversation with John was really, really, really honest and authentic. Look, the biggest things there are ask the right questions when you're seeking the experts and the professionals. If you're in the construction space, ask the right questions so you have a true temperature reading on what you're getting into. Know your worth. Ask for the right fee. Seek the right fee. And set the boundaries. It's okay to say thank you, but no thank you. This fit doesn't work for us. John reminds us that a widget in is a widget out. The information you're going to provide is going to impact the desired outcome, whether that's building a home or providing the financial documents to the accounting experts. John reminds us the importance of showing up as a human being, connecting with people. And that's what makes things magical. It's much more than transactional. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you. My ask of you today is that if something positive landed with you on the show, be kind and share it with somebody else so that it makes a difference in their life. Listen, there might be a piece of information here today that might be what somebody else needs to hear at this moment in time. We look for things that come in and out of our orbit at the right times. Help somebody else become better. Until we connect again, have a great day and make somebody else smile.